Good evening, Grand Rapids. It's January 21st, Wednesday, 2015 already. Anyway, this is CTV, the Society for Economic Equality. I'm Stephen Durst. This is a live call-in show. Our number is 459-4881. We'll be opening the phone soon enough. We have a high-powered panel here tonight to discuss the crisis of confidence in community police relations. On my far right is Reverend Shaka Holly, pastoral care and justice coordinator at Heartside Ministries in Grand Rapids. To my right is Paul Mayhew, former county commissioner, Reverend Paul Mayhew. To my right is Anita Moore of Black Lives Matter. And from the ACLU, we're honored to have, for the first time, Anthony Green. Well, I don't think I have much work to do tonight. All I have to do is sit back and let you all talk, but where would you like to begin? How about with the Civilian Review Board that you two worked on together, and then we'll talk about some more immediate issues. This is something you worked on. How long ago was that? That's been a while now.
Well, the Civilian Review Board Committee started in 1995 after the Million Man March that Farrakhan put together in D.C. And we came back from the march, and it was a bunch of young folks that was energized on the bus about the atonement. But they're more concerned about the way that they're being treated in the neighborhoods and being kicked and kind of roughed up. Well, not kind of rough, being kicked, roughed up, stopped, illegal searches and seizures, and all that types of stuff that was happening back then in '95. So as commissioner at that point, I rode the bus to DC, came back, and the young folks would say, Commissioner May, you gotta help us. We are under siege out here in the community. So we came back and we began to put the pieces together. We had community meetings, and we were subsequently joined by a young attorney that had just moved to town, and he helped guide us, Anthony Green here. And so that's the beginning of the movement. I'm not going to talk and hog the whole amount of time, because if people ask questions, then I can respond to questions based on that. But the march, the West Michigan March delegation, is the group that comes into existence at that point in time. It's the group that leads the charge and said, this is what we need. And then people came, and under our umbrella of the West Michigan March delegation, we went out into the community, collected 16,000 signatures of people that wanted a civilian review board here in the city of Grand Rapids, blacks, whites, Hispanics, and subsequently, I'm decreasing here, but subsequently they were disqualified. But the intent, any politician that knows if you get 16,000 people signing a document, then we have power enough to tell 16,000 people to vote the mayor out or vote that commissioner out. So Logie, in his political lease, said that let's make this concept, take it ourselves and take it away from them. So that's what they did. They took the concept, we pushed the concept, but they took it and shaped it to what they wanted it to be, and as opposed to what we wanted. But still, the net is that we have a document, an edifice, and now we just got to be able to, have the young folks listen to what we're saying and connect the dots so they can enhance what we have. And let me stop right there.
Well, Mr. Green, would you care to comment on that?
It covers it very well. The Million Man March and the West Michigan Million Man March Association, we went out and collected the signatures in the community. We promoted the Civilian Police Review Board. The one that we promoted, though, had far more powers than what the City Commission ultimately adopted. This was back during the days when the police chief, Haggerty, I believe the force at that time was pretty much out of control, that people's rights were being violated. If you lived in the inner city, they would just tell you to your face, you don't have any rights. Okay, but they passed an ordinance, they created the Civilian Police Review Board. They did not include a lot of the powers like subpoena power, which is one of the issues now that's on the table. So what the Civilian Police Review Board does is it reviews internal affairs of the police department's report. They do the investigation, they report to the Civilian Police Review Board, and that board then reviews the findings of internal affairs. They do not have the authority to independently subpoena witnesses to come before them to testify.
Would you say that it's functioning more as a fig leaf to protect the police now than as a means for the community to air grievances and redress injustices or correct the behavior of police who are intimidating people?
No, I would not say that, because I would not impugn the integrity of the people who serve on the board. I think there's some very honest and dedicated people who serve on the board, but how the board is controlled is internal affairs makes the presentation, they do the investigation. So the board cannot respond to information that's not before them.
So they need subpoena power. They don't have enough power.
They don't have enough power. They are not able to independently investigate claims.
Right.
What happens is it goes through internal affairs, okay? And if there is a problem then where you have a department within the department, okay, investigating the department,
Yes.
you have basically, the department investigating itself.
Which is suspicious on its face.
The department reports to the internal affairs reports to the Civilian Police Review Board.
Yes.
And that's what they have to act upon.
They cannot directly investigate.
They cannot.
I have a
So,
question. Oh.
yes, go ahead.
So,
please.
just in regards to that, I'm wondering, would it be possible for, instead of going directly to internal affairs, or that if the grievance went to internal affairs, that it could also go to another another group with investigative power that came from the Civilian Review Board? Like if the Civilian Review Board had its own investigators. Does that make sense? You know what I'm
But they
asking?
don't.
They don't.
But I'm
They
saying,
would
would
need
that be a
subpoena power.
possibility of something to ask for, as opposed to getting the report from the internal affairs, then doing another investigation? Is there a need for that? I don't know.
Let me think forward on this, if you don't mind.
Please.
Let me think forward. In terms of thinking forward, what we have also is the police chief's board. The board that we have a police chief advisory committee that's called the PCAT. And the police chief's advisory committee was set up because it was set up after the Civilian Appeals Board was set up, because there was a lot of complaints of humongous excessive force and gunplay. And so the federal government came into the city, and a guy named Gustavo Guynet initially came into the city and brought us together, because the city at that point in time was almost under what we call a consent decree. And so Gustavo came in, he brought us together and said, this was federally mandated that we had this police chiefs advisory committee. So in that sense, just speaking of that particular organization, that could be something like what you're talking about. Now, I just got a communication from the department today, said, well, we got to get together to see where the PCAT, the Police Chiefs Advisory Committee, fit into this schematic. That's a great recommendation. People need to know that there is a Police Chiefs Advisory Committee, that is a citizens committee, and we used to meet and discuss how things are going on, what's happening in the community. So what you just said, I'm gonna kind of, if you don't mind, I'm gonna use that. meeting.
Now, Shaka, you've had some dealings with the police. You were recently on a committee that was reviewing the very question of whether there was racial profiling in the city.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that, and then we'll get to
Sure.
Black Lives Matter.
Sure. I was serving in a different capacity outside of Hearthside in that regards, but it definitely fits with Hearthside Ministries and what happens in the community, given that we work with a community predominantly of homeless people. The people, because they're homeless, are at a higher risk, I believe, for harassment and brutality because they're very visible. Police harassment and abuse tends to be higher in that area. I've heard from several folk about their experience just coming downtown and seeing the police out all the time roughing people up. So in conversations with city manager, city police chief, city manager said to me personally that he does not believe that any brutality happens, police brutality happens in the city of Grand Rapids, and if there is misconduct and harassment, it's at a very low rate. He believes, given the recommendations in that report that he submitted, I believe on the first page it says that incarceration rates for blacks are about 4.4 times higher than whites, and so his analysis of that is that those people use drugs at a higher level than others, which is totally against what national statistics say, that blacks don't use drugs at a higher rate than whites do. So that in itself, that you have this city manager who's submitting this document who himself does not believe there's a problem. And then I believe Anthony was saying that there was, the NAACP did a joint event with the Grand Rapids Police Chief at Baxter Community Center, in which the police chief was to go and to listen to the folk who were at that event, to hear from them about their concerns and issues. I believe Paul was there and others who witnessed that people talked about the misconduct, the harassment that they experienced. Yet, the day that the recommendation came out from the city manager, there was a press conference, and the chief of police said that he does not believe that there's misconduct. So once again, this refusal to hear from the community. So going out into the community with this facade of I'm going to listen, I'm going to hear, but returning back and then saying, I didn't hear a thing. Whatever was said was in one ear, out the other. I don't believe there's any misconduct happening. This is something that's on a national level, not here in Grand Rapids. So seeing that report and the recommendations that were made, I mean, a huge amount of what's in there seems like a misuse of citizen dollars. Doing another racial profiling study when we've already had one, it came back inconclusive, in which people have wrongfully said that it has come back saying that there is no racial profiling, and from my understanding it came back inconclusive, so not stating one over the other. And then also there were 4 neighborhoods in that study that had higher rates of stops and arrests, tickets of black folk. Well, they keep saying that there was no racial profile, no racial profiling. For a fact, it was the 4 areas that were higher, but even with that, they said it's inconclusive. I don't know how you can't read that it's higher in these 4 areas, but so what's happening is the city manager is taking these things, submitted it to the community in the city with no belief that there is a problem, making the recommendations, in some ways listening to the chief and the city manager in that press conference is to appease the people of Grand Rapids, given that there's a national problem. So not really addressing the real issues that are happening in Grand Rapids, not even hearing them, not even hearing those issues, but trying to appease the people so that there isn't an uproar, there isn't a fight for subpoena power or a review of the Civilian Review Board or other forms of activism against the harassment and brutality.
Let me address the recommendations for a minute. Recommendation 11 called for independent investigation of police shootings.
Yeah.
But only, it's very limited to police shootings.
Yep.
Then when you look at recommendation 12, the first thing it says is that we do not recommend that the Civilian Appeals Board be provided with subpoena powers, okay?
Yeah.
So this is what the 12 these are the recommendations that came out from the city manager. They could very easily answer your question, and that is expand the investigation by allowing to expand on recommendation 11, whereas give the Civilian Police Review Board the authority to have an independent investigation of any complaint and not just
Yeah.
police shootings.
Mm-hmm.
So we could, if they expanded on 11, where the Civilian Police Review Board, after taking a look at the initial complaint, could make a determination that we need independent investigation of this matter, and have the authority to direct that, not just to police shootings, but if any complaint, then that would go a long way to address our concerns of the department investigating itself.
I think the question
yeah.
would be, though, who's doing the investigation? I don't have that form in front of me, but I do believe that it said the independent investigation would be by another police force, so either the
And
state
that's-
police
that's
or,
still cold
so once
blue.
again,
That's
the
cold blue.
police. So could the Civilian Review Board or Citizen Review Board be able to create or in some way have their own entity that would be able to do the investigation? Because I think you're right on that the 12 should be expanded into the 11, but can we even go a little further than that?
Let me say this.
Or is that
I think that we can. See, what happens is we need to be able to, the citizens need to be able to go back to the map, look at the city charter, and find out where they can insert the word, the investigative authority, or where they can insert subpoena power. That's what we did. We went to the city charter, looked at the city charter, and made our progress based on what we were doing. It didn't take 16,000 signatures to do that. Actually, when I looked it up, it's something like 6,000 signatures to amend the charter. So now people have to understand that you can amend the charter. And what they're saying that it's not, if they're saying the subpoena power doesn't fit the union schematic, that ain't our problem as citizens. The lawyers and the legislature got to figure that out if we go out and the citizens say this is what they want.
This is, oh, go ahead,
Go ahead.
please,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Green.
And in answer to your question about another police agency, I'm not sure what the solution is not to go to a police agency. There are not very many organizations that have the capability of conducting that type of investigation. We should research that and come up with some ideas. But I have found that the higher up you go on the chain when it comes to police organizations, the more professional they become. The state police are a lot more professional in their investigations. The FBI is far more professional. So I'm not sure I'm that concerned about, I understand, Paul, you are totally correct, the line of blue and the code of blue. But I think it would be very difficult to come up with an organization that's not a police agency that would be able to do the type of investigation.
We need a mix, though. You need a mix. It's just like the president is the leader of the army as well as a civilian. So we need a mix.
This is an interesting conversation we're having here. This is CTV. It's Wednesday, January 21st. It's a live call-in show. The number is 459-4881, 459-4881. So far, our conversation has been top-heavy on solutions, and that's a good thing. But we haven't really outlined the problem, and I think that there may be people in our audience who don't realize that there is a problem. So Anita Moore is with Black Lives Matter, and perhaps you could give us a thumbnail sketch of the problems the community is facing, both locally and nationally, with overly aggressive police tactics.
Yes, so Black Lives Matters, Grand Rapids, we're the Grand Rapids chapter of the national movement, and so we are here to listen to our community members. We are part of the community, we are the community, and what we found so far is that we keep coming across what Shaka said, city officials who say they want to listen to us, but then they're not listening, and then they want to provide solutions that really don't dig deep enough into the issues that we are talking about. So when we are talking about Grand Rapids, part of the problem is that half of the city doesn't, even know or acknowledge that there is racial disparities in police tactics here, and so we come across this issue that we have to elevate voices who are being oppressed in this city. We are come across so many people and members of the communities who are saying, yeah, we are harassed by the police, we are monitored by the police, and we are having these confrontations that can be daily for people. So yeah, there's a huge problem of people not knowing, and we've come across this so much in our organizing so far, is that people are like, wow, I didn't even know, I don't see it. And so that's why we're here. We want to address that. We want to elevate these voices. And when it comes to these city officials coming up with all these proposals and things, it's not to say that those aren't good ideas, but we're not satisfied. They don't dig deep enough, and actually we think that they become a distraction. The city plan is not cheap. It's to implement these things like body cams, they're really going to be expensive, and we have a lot of issues in the city that extend farther beyond just police brutality. But look at the state of our schools. They're horrible here. And I don't even know if it's an issue of money, but I certainly would not want to see more money being pumped into our police departments than in our schools. We have issues of food insecurity, we have environmental issues, and all these things are tied together. And to come up with these solutions to say that we want more police on the street, even to say that we want these body cams, which as an organization we have our doubts about. We have issues of who will the police actually be monitoring, and how will they be deciding to review footage being collected, is an issue when we are already having issues with police collecting prints and photos from people that are questionable legally.
Well, there are a couple of really good issues you brought up there, and I'd like to canvass everyone on their attitude towards the body cam or the police cam system that's coming in. Is this really going to stop the police from brutalizing people? It didn't seem to stop them in the case of Eric Garner. The person who took the video that showed the police choking him to death was indicted, but the police who actually choked him to death were not indicted. Mr. Green, as a lawyer, what's your view of the police cams?
I think body cams would be very beneficial to the community. For one, the way officers speak at commissions and in court is totally different than how they address people on the street.
It's true.
And this would reveal to the public how people are actually treated, or it would force them to change their ways. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that it would force a certain amount of respect and force them to treat people with dignity, because they would know that what they're doing is being recorded. But here's my concern, and they have cameras now in all Grand Rapids City police cars. And not only do they have cameras, each officer wears a microphone, okay? And the officers know how to circumvent that system.
Exactly.
They'll turn the microphone off, and I've received video where all of a sudden the volume goes down, and you can see on the video that there's conversation going on, but the volume drops out. And a lot of times they'll claim it's a malfunction of the equipment. When the city develops an ordinance to bring about body cams, that ordinance should have penalties for any officer who anyway circumvents that body cam. I was reading a report just this week where a person was interrogated, and the report says, I had a hard disk error on my car camera, therefore the interrogation is not recorded. Okay. Now I don't know if he had a hard disk error or not. Those things do happen, but it does cause me to raise an eyebrow and say, okay. One of the most important aspects of this case is the interrogation, and it's not recorded.
Well, that would be my concern with the body cams, too, is that they would use them when it strengthens their case, but edit out anything. So if there's not a civilian review board to actually look at these things, if it's all going to be handled internally, if juries are only going to see what the prosecution wants them to see, if there's not disclosure for the defense and things like that, how are the body cams going to be used? Are they just going to be used to gather more evidence? It's like, anyway, we have a caller. Rick, you're on the line, but you mind if we let Shock address this? Because I know you have some issues with this too.
Let me talk about that. The technology that is available would clearly show if it was tampered with.
Yeah.
And the ordinance should very clearly not allow editing. Okay? Now, you might have some procedures where anything that may be released to the public in a non-court setting, and that is a concern, privacy.
Yes.
And we need to talk about that. But what's available to defense attorneys and to defendants who are defending these actions or who are bringing about these complaints, that video has to be pure and untampered with. And if it isn't, the body cams are worthless.
Or worse than worthless.
Yeah.
Shaka?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of the same concerns as Anthony expressed with the body cams, as well as what Anita expressed with the body cams. I think the one thing that hasn't been said, and maybe you touched on it a little bit, is someone's going to profit significantly from these body cams. It's not going to be the homeless folk in Hartside neighborhood that's going to profit significantly from these body cams. The body cams won't prevent the harassment to these communities, yet they don't get any benefit from the body cams being on the police officers. My assumption is that what we're going to begin to see is people behaving badly. Videotapes coming out of people doing crazy stuff like we see on Cops or what have you, to support the officer's viewpoint or their arrest or what have you. And what we're not going to see is the brutality, the harassment, the misconduct that's happening. I watched the video a couple days ago, and I was thinking about the issue of the body cams as I watched that. It was a couple of officers who pulled a gentleman over. Some of you may have seen it. It's circulated on social media. Pulled a gentleman over on the highway. He was scared in his car, hands up. They pulled him out the car, began hitting, kicking, beating him. But the whole time, one of the officers is yelling, "Stop reaching for my gun. Stop resisting arrest. Stop trying to hit me." So as you stated, officers know how to get around these things. Had that tape never surfaced, and at some point it did disappear, had it never surfaced, this gentleman would have been incarcerated. So that's one time in which you actually find a tape of it, but there are so many times where the tapes are shut off. We had the shooting not too long ago when they say the kid had a gun pointed. You can see, and I don't know if they ever clarified it more, but you can see from the gas station camera that this kid is holding something. Some people say it's a cell phone, some say it's a gun. But it's interesting that the body cam that the officer is wearing is shut off, as well as there's some sort of malfunction with the camera on the cruiser. So there's at no point this up close video footage of what's actually in the kid's hand. And again, I don't know if they've cleared that up. This was a few weeks ago that I've seen that.
That is the
Well, I
problem.
think it is a problem.
We're going to take this phone call. Rick, You have a question or comment for our panel on police brutality, and especially in Grand Rapids. Rick?
Yes, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you very well.
Hello?
Can you turn it up a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Just barely. Okay, let's see. Try now.
Hello?
Can anybody hear that? Can you guys fix that? Is there any way to fix this? Or should we have him call back?
If you can understand him,
That's good enough? All right, okay.
then you're fine.
Go ahead, Rick. Speak up.
Yeah, I think that this is a good discussion, by the way. Good panel, good people here. But it seems like the presumption is that the police are at fault here in any kind of confrontation between the community, as you put it, and the police officers. And you talk about harassment and brutality, but is there ever thought given to the fact that perhaps, and this is mostly youth, probably between the ages of 18, 35, or maybe 18 to 30 or what have you, and I don't know the exact age cohort, but I believe that 42% of these young black youth are either on probation, on parole, or in prison or in jail. And of course, to me, that seems like rather than going after the police, there ought to be some type of remedial action taken in parenting, because apparently these youth are not being raised right to respect not only the police officers but authority in general.
So you buy that they're just a more criminal than white kids?
Can I answer?
Yes, please do. Please answer that.
Can I answer that? I mean, right now as we speak, we have a group, a bipartisan group that is working on trying to fix the jury selection process. What you just said exemplifies the fact that the jury selection process throughout the state of Michigan is burned up. It's stacked against black people. It is totally stacked against black people. It's so much stacked against black people that in the 90s, a guy named Wayne Bentley did a statistical study, and found that the census tracts in the inner city was not being mailed the information to become part of the jury pool. Same thing happens in Detroit. And when Detroit, well, you got a large pool of blacks, but you don't get no blacks on the jury pool because they got a system where if they mail it out, then they don't get anybody. They put that name in a lockbox. Same thing's happening in Benton Harbor. I just had a friend in Benton Harbor named Reverend Pinckney that just went to jail with an all-white jury, nobody in the jury from Benton Harbor. So the jury pool needs fixing. So what you're saying needs fixing is the jury pool, not the kids, because what happens with the youth is they get picked up for hindering and opposing. Did you know that they had there was a state hindering and opposing and a city ordinance hindering and opposing, and one of them can send you to prison. The state hindering and opposing can send you to prison. And what is hindering and opposing? I say, hi, Anthony, in front of a cop, and the cop say, hey, you made me turn my eyes from dealing with him. That's hindering and opposing. So we get picked up and put in jail, and then people in the community call and say, oh, those kids are not being parented right. But then the net is that you got a court that don't have a black person in that courtroom.
Rick, are you a parent? It's really not as easy to parent as you think. And it's pretty easy to blame parents.
No, I'm not, but
so bad. But the way you're reading these statistics are just the way the authorities want you to read these statistics.
No, I know, but
you're not looking at a system.
Understood, but I wanted to respond to what Paul said there.
So they can't vote, they can't be on juries, they can't get assistance, they can't find housing. It's a systematic reassertion of discrimination by other means through a criminal justice system that's bordering on police state.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just add, Yeah, thank you, Rick, for your racist and uneducated comment. You're clearly not informed about what a cycle of violence looks like, and that happens through state violence and with the enforcement of the police department. So what does state violence look like? State violence looks like when a kid is introduced into the school to prison pipeline from pre-K, and if they're lucky enough to graduate. We just came back from a Mark Lamont Hill thing in Grand Valley, and this is exactly what he was talking about. And Grand Rapids is not exempt, is not secluded from these issues of state violence and police brutality from the rest of the country. And what Chaka just said earlier was that blacks are not more likely to either do drugs or more crime. This has been nationally proven with statistics and empirical data that blacks are not more likely to do crime. So when you have a situation where we're looking at black youth being picked up, incarcerated, sentenced, and put in jail, that is a cycle of violence. And that is, maybe they made a mistake, maybe their parents weren't home because they live in a one-parent home, because their relative guardian is in prison, because the cycle of violence continues. These kids can't finish school, they don't have teachers, they don't have funding, they don't have people who are helping them, because it doesn't take a parent, it takes a community to grow children. They don't have those resources.
I agree with that.
They don't have that support. So for you to come on here and try to tell a panel of black people that our kids, that we were a part of the problems that the state has imposed on our community, is absolutely racist.
So Rick, and there are things that you could do personally as
yes, but could I respond?
Childless man. You could
Could I
you could be a
respond
big
to what
brother
Paul
and
said?
things like that. Perhaps.
What are you doing for the community?
Could I respond to what Paul said?
We're here and we need help.
Lady, I got your comments. You're quite rude. But could I respond to what Paul said?
Yeah, I'm rude because I am sick of these styles.
Oh, you're sick of a lot of things. Could I respond to what Paul said?
And I don't have to be nice when I'm confronted with racism.
No, I know you're not either.
I don't have to be polite, and I don't have to be anything
Just
like
because
that.
somebody disagrees with you, ma'am, does not make them racist. Come on, now grow up.
Okay, you want to respond to what I was saying?
Yeah,
Please,
because Paul, I think you're.
What were you talking about?
Well, Paul, I think you're a good man, and I think your comments were well thought out. However, when you say that there's a lack of a proper jury pool, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah.
But if, for instance, there were black youth on trial for a certain offense, and there were all white people on the jury, of course that would look bad.
That's what happens.
That's
where we are right now.
Especially if they're sitting in the defendant's seat.
Especially in circuit court.
But Paul, if it's the other way around, couldn't that be considered bias too?
Say what?
In other words, if you have all blacks on a jury trying a black person,
that's not the problem.
That's not even a question.
Isn't that bias as well?
In this situation, this is a white-dominated type of a situation where if the rules were played fairly, we could deal with it. If the rules are played fairly, if we can develop. We have legislation right now in the state legislature as we speak that can fix this. Now, are we going to get the elephants to come over with the donkeys and say, hey, let's do a little marriage proposal here and fix this for the humans? Because we human too.
Let me re-summarize your point, Rick. Instead of going after the police to hold them accountable for their crimes, you're saying that the statistics prove that since 44% of black men between 18 and 35 are in some way in prison or on parole, that this proves that the problem is the parenting. So,
because otherwise,
are you seeing how Mr. Reverend Mayhew's point about how this contributes? The system is self-perpetuating because people who get into the system, they don't get to vote, they don't get to be on juries.
You can't have
and
housing, you can't
You
get a
can't get
job.
housing, you can't get
Right.
jobs.
Well, a lot of
So
that
if
could
we
be
wa- If we're going to
socioeconomic,
solve
though.
this, we have to do more than blame the parents, I think.
I
We're going to
know,
have to
but
look at it systematically and
Yeah,
rationally.
I
Judge
agree. I
Johnson
agree. There could
calls
be
it
there could
civil
be
death.
a problem with the
Yes.
system, but the
And he
system I think
introduced me to
discriminates
that
against poor
term,
people,
civil death.
whatever their color.
What is civil death? Civil death is when they used to kill and hang people for felonies. This is according to Judge Johnson. I love that little lesson that he taught me.
And
They used to hang people and kill them for felonies. But then you fast forward to what's happening now. When you get out of prison for a felony, you're like a zombie, walking dead.
Yeah.
That is what he taught me a few weeks ago, because I went and sat in his chambers. That is what taught me about civil death,
Well,
which is a horrible death.
but Paul, the problem with this is that I trusted a white person who was a felon in my neighborhood. I tried to help him out. He stole from me.
All right, thanks for your call, Rick. It's really hard to hear you, and
I'm sorry.
we're just going to move on. I'm hoping we're going
Thanks
to have
for the time.
another caller tonight. Our number is 459-4881, as you can see on the screen. So shifting gears. Well, Shaka, no doubt you hear stories every day in your profession of how the police treat our what they call homeless people. We used to call them bums.
Yeah, they
I don't
used
know
to.
if I'm
Some still
which
do.
is a harsher word, but
Yeah, some of the. So not only do I hear stories, I've seen and taken pictures myself. Last Good Friday, myself and some others from the community, particularly women from the Latino community, working with immigrants and others, we held a rally against police brutality and harassment. We did that because Jesus was killed and harassed by the state.
Amen.
And so when we think about faith and Christianity, and we think about Jesus being the, the figure of the faith, having these same experiences and how they continue. And so we held a protest on Good Friday, which represents the day in which he was murdered. We had several people from the community to speak about their experiences. One of the people spoke about his experience in a homeless shelter. So in the space and place which is supposed to care for him, provide him shelter, provide him safety from the streets, from homelessness in a time of need, he gets the police called on him. And when the police come, this is a gentleman who at the time had a handicap. He was in a scooter, and the homeless shelter has steep stairs. So the police basically dragging him down the stairs, throwing his scooter down the stairs, and arresting him. So he comes into my office in tears, with bruises all over him, a tear in his pants. He's arrested from the homeless shelter, the place where everyone tells you to go when you need a place to stay.
And he was arrested on a bench warrant or a...
No, he was arrested. From my understanding, he, because of the disability, he had a issue with his foot. Someone told him to soak it in some salt or something. So he went into a room that was open to get a bag, and they're not allowed in that room.
Oh, my
And then
goodness.
the staff were there in another room, so then he went into that room to ask for help, and so they realized he was going in all of these rooms, so clearly breaking the rules of the facility, and then interacting with the security officer, feeling that he was justified in his behavior as he's trying to care for himself. I think a verbal confrontation ensued, and the police show up, and they don't show up nicely. They don't show up nicely, and so they don't oftentimes they don't take well to people in certain predicaments. A person who's homeless, who's in need of help, a person who's poor in poverty. I mean, I deal with people who are so fearful from the police. In Sunday worship one time, a guy came in and talked, 15 minutes about his experience of being harassed. He comes in, he still has the wristband of coming from the hospital. Every time he sees or hears about the police, he's come to the Black Lives Matters meetings. I mean, he's traumatized. That guy is traumatized from the brutality that he's experienced. Again, a gentleman in a wheelchair. So not a person who can do too much harm to someone. He's in a wheelchair, disabled, and totally traumatized from these experiences with the police. It happens to women. Some people forget that there are women there. They think it's only about these men. So many women being harassed by the police. I've heard of again, horror stories. Even friends, a friend of mine, her daughter thrown up against a car by a police officer. Another pastor took her down to court to try to advocate on her behalf. This was just a few weeks ago. So to sit and to hear our police chief and city manager say, oh, well, we think this is a national problem, not a problem here in Grand Rapids. I could say that I'm angry about it, but it's really heartbreaking. It's really, really sad to know that people live and experience this day in and day out, and those who are supposed to be there to at least take up the cost, to do an investigation, to be concerned about it, won't even acknowledge that it happens, even when people take the time out of their day to go to Baxter Community Center for an evening, an invitation by the NAACP to tell their story with the belief that this new police chief who's been here wants to hear from us. And then he slaps them in the face, turns around and says on camera, I don't really believe there's a problem. How disrespectful.
And he was dismissive to you too, saying, "Oh, you're a young woman.
Yeah.
You just have opinions and stuff." When you were coming,
yeah.
with,
So
the
city manager explained to me that I didn't have any facts as I talked about the harassment and brutality that happened in the city. His example was that I said that we need to stop this police brutality, and that I don't have facts that they're top 2%. I think they're rated. I don't have the fact, but they're rated at a top 2%.
Well, I got some facts
around the country. So he, said he was going to provide me with some constructive criticism.
Now, did anyone hear Trayvon Martin's mother speak on Monday?
But before we go there, let me say something that Anthony might or might not be able to say. Let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
There was a situation in the Civilian Appeals Board day where there was an African male named Wanyu that got beat up real bad at the corner of Wealthy and Fuller, right in that area. And the long and the short of it is that it was a time when the Civilian Appeals Board reversed a decision, did not say, I go along with you, Internal Affairs, and said that what was happened with this cop, what he did was wrong, and he should be punished. Now that sent shockwaves through the Grand Rapids Police Department. It was only a slap in the hand when the Civilian Appeals Board reversed that decision. So it's a case called WANDU, W-A-N-D-O-U. Yeah, that's WANDU. But that would be something for somebody to look up and see what the circumstances was around that reversal of internal affairs. Because what we had purported all the time is that internal affairs is just like the police's ace coon boom, and just rubber stamp them all the time.
Everyone here, no doubt, remembers Carol Irons, who was shot by her husband, the policeman, in the very courtroom, shot twice and killed.
Yeah.
And he shot at the police and attempting to escape, and somehow ended up being convicted not of murder, but of some sort of aggravated manslaughter or something. That,
Yeah, I remember.
but yeah, I think of it just because how could they say that there's no misconduct in the police department? I mean, even if we had the top 1% of police departments
Well, I
in
just
the
wanna
country,
say
this
that to
country's
support
got
what you
enough
were saying.
Yeah, thank you.
misconduct.
Yeah.
People are police are people, and people are imperfect.
It's
at least.
insulting, and under the guise of trying to repair community relations with the police, you won't even acknowledge our experiences, and these are not, isolated. They're not anecdotes. This is the state of the relationships between the police department and the community in Grand Rapids. This is not. This is not just one or two stories. I mean, you can trace this back within Grand Rapids history. So we're not making this up. We're not blowing things out of proportion. We're not targeting the wrong group of people here. We're saying that these things are happening, and they'll come to us and say, oh, we're listening. We'll partner with a Black group in Grand Rapids, and everyone can feel comfortable and heard, and it's not happening. So how can the relationship between the police and the community be repaired when they don't think it needs to be?
But, go ahead, Anthony. I've talked.
We need to implement a type of a system independent of the police where people can come and make their complaint.
Yeah.
They can be advised, where we use the information systems that we have available now to track
I love that idea.
what is taking place, where we will then have the empirical data to be able to show what is taking place. Right now, if you go and report it to Internal Affairs, being able to go back and research that while the case is pending is not possible. You just cannot. While a case is being researched, while it's pending, you're not going to get any response. You can file FOIAs, you're not going to get any response. So we should get the word out. We should set up a system and get the word out where when you have a problem, come to us. We'll help guide you,
Right.
and we'll track it, and we will have a database now of complaints independent of the police department.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
Well, we tried that a little bit, Anthony. I think we worked at a little bit during the formative years of the Civilian Appeals Board. So I think, I do remember working at.
We did.
With you.
It wasn't as formal, but I'm saying a formal system.
Right.
We did it independently.
Right.
We did it because as commissioner, you had resources that allowed us to
Oh,
gather and track
I had so much
information.
fun being a commissioner.
And because of that,
Yeah.
we were able to, get a handle on it.
Right.
Better.
We will have a few minutes left, but we do have a phone caller. If you would make a quick question or comment, we have to wrap this up soon. Caller,
Yes, hi.
go ahead, please. Louder.
Oh, hello. This is Martha.
Okay.
I'm calling because I have a comment. Something that I think a lot of people are very concerned about are the grand juries coming back with no indictments against police officers who have killed people. The Michael Brown case, they have a lifetime ban on jurors speaking to anyone about the case.
Yes, the gag order on the grand jury.
Yes, the one juror is suing to be able to talk about how evidence was presented by the local prosecutor skewed to acquit the officer.
Yes,
And
it's a
what-
good point.
And what can be done when evidence does not justify the claims of self-defense by the police? There have been situations where people are tased to death. There have been situations where there's like one case of Dante Hamilton, and he was shot 14 times by the police. I think that goes quite beyond what use of force is necessary, and if it goes far beyond what's necessary, then shouldn't there be charges pressed of some kind? And what can be done about the current ways that we have grand juries, and how will they be transparent in the future?
I think one way, during the time that we that Gustavo Guynet came in from the federal government. We were able to decentralize internal affairs and say that internal affairs has to come into the community. And I'm saying that to say that instead of, see, a lot of times people, when they go with a complaint, they go to the internal affairs and they tell them what happened. That's the wrong thing to do. Because what we were finding at that point in time is the slanting of the person's thought was happening. So that's why we said we had it decentralized so that you could have internal affairs come down to the Urban League, come to the NAACP, come to the preachers. So we also advise people to file complaints, because most people don't file complaints. Well, filing a complaint creates the documentation that you need when the federal government comes in.
We have just a few minutes to go, 1 minute to go. I want to thank Anthony Green of the ACLU, Anita Moore of Black Lives Matters, Reverend Paul Mayhew of many services to our community over the years, Ashaka Holly from Heartside Ministries, Pastoral Care, and Justice Coordinator. Just anybody have any idea how we can convince white people like Rick that that there really is a problem? Can we?
We got to
Any
thank
idea?
you for hosting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm honored.
Anthony.
A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
Yes.
People believe what they want. When you look at statistics, as you mentioned, the rate for the school shooting country. I had a case just back in October, November, where we had a school official right here in Grand Rapids, a public charter school, called in the